Growing plants can be fun, and wanting to sell them is great, but you need to make sure that you are picking the proper containers for your plants. Now, you can pick any container. Here we found a 5-quart pail, actually, and I am drilling holes into it for proper drainage, because if you don't have any holes in the bottom of it, since this wasn't an original pot, then your plants are going to suffer in the long run. Now here we're transplanting a tomato plant. This is the Rio Grande variety. It is similar to a Roma tomato that you wouldn't use for paste or canning, stuff like that. And we've got our soil in there, and we're going to see if this is already root bound for the size of the container that the plant is in at that height. Now hopefully I haven't disturbed this plant too much. This was my tallest tomato. I didn't get all of the soil. There's some, it kind of broke apart on me. And you can see some roots here. It's not root bound because they haven't grown all the way and wrapped themselves around this edge of the soil. So that's a good sign. So hopefully I haven't disturbed it enough and it won't be able to grow in this container. Now you'll want to bury the stem up a little bit on the edge of the pot. So if we go down to the level of the edge of the pot, you can see right there, it's about halfway up that stem. And that's pretty good because it'll add more stability to the plant. And eventually you're going to want to bury it up a little bit anyway, because this plant's going to put out some roots right up in here anyway. So you can see I've got one root dangling down here, allowing for growth down, and they're all not cramped in one spot. So we'll see how this plant does. Now additionally, we're going to go ahead and do something kind of fun. We're also going to put a pepper plant in this pot to make it kind of fun for the kids. Since it's a kid's bucket, then we're going to go ahead and put a jalapeno pepper in, and one of these two looks pretty good, so we'll dig it up and we'll put it in there and we'll see how it looks. Okay, so we're going to pick one that has a little flower growing in there as well. There's an additional tomato plant poking up there because I got too impatient and I didn't want to wait for those seeds to germinate, and then they all sprouted at the same time. So that'll provide extra insurance in case the other tomato plant falters. You've got another one in behind it. And this growing tray with the larger cells, it's actually more convenient because when you push up on the bottom, you see how it just slides right out intact. So that's really good. So you have a higher chance of success because you're not disturbing the roots with a growing tray that has larger cells like this. Okay, so you can see I've got a good fair distance in between both these plants, and normally you don't want to water the leaves. We've got this $10 sprayer that Shane got from Lowe's, but I wanted to get some of that soil off the leaves, because anytime you got leaves hanging close to the surface of the soil, that's when diseases can occur. So I wanted to get that off. Now, we got our holes drilled in the bottom of it. We filled the soil to a nice high level. We buried that stem a little bit, and we've got an insurance plant down there just in case something happens with that. Maybe I disturbed the roots too much during planting. You just never know. But you can see this soil is nice and dark. It's a very fertile soil. It's actually repurposed from last year, but you can see there's still some organic material still in there. That'll serve as a little bit of fertilizer. And then now that it's got 2 sets of true leaves on the plant, you can use a liquid fertilizer, and we like to use a Miracle-Gro solution for that. But you don't want to go too heavy, and it'll result in fertilizer burn, and your plants will just dry up. So there you have it. That is how easy it is to transplant your crops into a larger container. And you saw that the Rio Grande tomato was not root bound. That is the height you want to start transplanting your tomato plants. One final tip for these plants is you still want to harden them off. I made that mistake back in March 14th when those storms rolled through, and I thought that I pulled my plants out before the frost came, so they should be fine. Well, tomato plants can't handle any type of wind at all. And I left them out there for 5 hours on a 70-some degree day thinking they'd be fine. Nope. They took about 2 weeks. Their growth was stunted, and 2 weeks later they all withered and died. So you have to harden your plants off. Set them outside for an hour each day when it's warm out and the sun is directly shining on the plants, and then gradually they'll get acclimated to those outside temperatures and the winds, and they'll be good to go. Now, it does help that we buried the stem up a little bit on this plant, so that does help a little bit too, to avoid some of that transplant shock. And now you should be set, and these plants should hopefully thrive going forward.